You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch movies and TV. I mean, I guess we only watch documentaries now.
I mean,
we've done two.
Yeah, so that's a trend.
And I don't want to give anything away, but we might have one more coming up pretty soon.
I am so excited. We shouldn't say anything yet, but
I think we have to say something because I think it'll be next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said I don't want to give anything away just now, but we just talked off mic.
Yeah.
And should we save it for the end? Just because
Let's
that's what we always do? Oh boy, do we have something exciting.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah. Can I give you what my opening line was going to be if it was my turn?
Yeah.
Okay. You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey prove that you can never really escape either New Jersey or the mafia. Specifically the Italian mafia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know there was a Jersey connection, and it's literally. We'll just start with it. The
mafia connection isn't even the Jersey connection.
No,
They're
it's
two different Jersey connections.
It's the Sicilian mafia. Yeah, no, the town that Mr. Kim lives in is the town that my grandparents lived in.
What the heck?
In Bergen County.
They didn't have to tell us that. We didn't have to go to Jersey, but we did.
Exactly. Can't escape it.
So funny.
Thank you for letting me do that. So we watched Kim's video.
We did.
A documentary about Kim's video. So let's talk a little bit about why we chose this one real quick. Mm-hmm. So we decided, because we had interviewed Tommy and because we have this other exciting thing coming up, that we would do a little run of documentaries, because why not? It's fun. Mm-hmm. We didn't have
And we haven't watched any, right?
I don't think so.
Until now, I don't think so.
No, and I love a documentary, so...
Unless you count... Well, hold on. We watched one documentary.
You didn't say Sopranos?
That's very good, too. We watched two documentaries.
Okay. What was the other one?
Sopranos.
Empire Records?
Escape from Witch Island, obviously.
Oh, of course. Yes, of course. Of course. But yeah, so part of the reason we wanted to watch this is because...
Blair Witch Project as well.
Right.
I said that's so close to the mic.
Yeah, that was intense. As has been mentioned in the past, Andrea and I both worked at video stores in the 90s and the early 2000s, right? Was that when you worked at one?
Early 2000s, yeah.
Early 2000s, yeah. So I worked at Empire Video in Waldwick when I was in college, and that would have been 96, 97, around that time. A little earlier than that, because I remember that I was working there when Clerks came out. But in addition, so we're both video store kids. We've had the experience of, trying to charge people hundreds of dollars in late fees, and in my case, having them throw a tape at you. I
don't think I read a tape thrown at me.
Oh my God, I did.
I think because mine was technically a corporate, smaller, we were out. There's a lot going on with the video store that I worked at specifically. I think they're actually a franchise, but because we had some oversight or whatever, it wasn't quite as Wild Westy where I was.
This was owned by an older couple, and they had 3 locations. I think it was Waldwick, Clifton, and Hawthorne. But I mainly worked at the Waldwick location. And people are mean. But beyond that, I moved to New York City in 2000. And even before then, when I was in high school and college, I spent a lot of time in the city. And whenever we went to the city, it was the same thing. We always went to the Lower East Side. That was just where you went. We would go to Jaffa Cafe. We would walk down St. Mark's. We would pretend we were really cool punk kids. And so, I did go into this video store. I was not a member, but the one on St. Mark's, which was Mondo Kim's, I went into many times while I was down there just to poke around and feel like I was cooler than I was. Mm-hmm. So that's why we kind of got to this one. We looked at a bunch of recent documentaries and, looked for the ones that connected with stuff we've talked about before.
Yeah. And I hate to be that person, but it's just so different. I worked at a Hollywood video, which is not exciting. We had a little used section, and I was there when we were still selling VHS tapes, but making the move to DVD. So it was a really interesting time to work in a video store.
Did you have the Laserdisc moment?
I missed the Laserdisc moment.
We had a Laserdisc moment.
There's a movie on there that's from SLC Punk.
But you were kind of a standard, not I mean,
Well,
my store didn't have like bootlegs either.
yeah, my store was very standard, other than the used section where we took like literally anything, because I think they were just. But I had a couple of really good video stores nearby. I'll take that back. I had a couple of mom and pop owned pretty good video stores nearby. More importantly, though, I was a 10-minute, 15-minute train ride from South Street, which at the time was the fucking coolest.
Well,
and
yeah.
like TLA Video was on South, and that closed in like probably 2010 or so. They had a few different locations, but the one on South Street was like taking the train and just like, you know, like shelf after shelf after shelf. That was the best.
Yeah, my video store was not, we only had regular like corporate movies, but we did have a porn section that was right in the middle of the store for some reason. Like not behind a curtain, not anywhere where you couldn't see the people.
Really?
Literally, there was an aisle. It was all like, there was the back walls that had all the new releases on them, and then all the older movies were in the aisles leading to the back walls. And one of those aisles was just the porn aisle, and it was binders with covers in them.
So you could be a little discreet.
So but discreet in that, you know, the place was staffed by teenage girls mostly, and like there'd just be creepy dudes paging through binders staring at us the whole time.
Awful.
Like really disgusting. Yeah, so I don't know why maybe my bosses had a sense of humor that I never saw to put that like right in the middle of the store.
So funny.
But I'd also like to point out that, so Wolfboro, New Hampshire is the town that my family spends a lot of time in. My aunt has a house there. My cousin has a house there. And they still have a working video store.
That rules. Called
Your Movie Warehouse.
Aww.
And it's like right off the middle of town, and it's so cute. So there's a couple still out there. We should talk about this weird ass movie instead of just reminiscing about working in video stores.
Yeah. Well, I've been talking to you as if I hated it.
Yeah.
Didn't hate it. I didn't hate it at all. And the more I think about it, the more I like it. I have questions.
Concerns.
I have concerns.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
I also have concerns. Let's talk about the facts of it first.
Yes.
So this came out in 2023. Directed and written and screenwritten by David Redman and Ashley Sabin, a husband and wife team. And what else do we need to say? It's like an hour and a half. It purports to be a straightforward documentary, although that's questionable in some cases.
And there is a story here that is pretty well documented, even from before this documentary, which is Kim's Video, the best, coolest collection of videos probably in the world. 55,000 titles. And that Youngman Kim eventually had to not sell off.
Well, so he ended up closing he was going to close the final store in 2008. And he wanted to find a place to care for and store the collection of videos that he had amassed, which included lots of bootlegs that the FBI would come in and raid, and then he'd just replace with new bootlegs. Like,
he's so cool. I wanted the whole documentary to be him.
I know. He's very interesting. But so 2008, and apparently lots of universities were interested, including NYU, but for some reason.
Well, he had specific. This is what I was reading some articles from before the documentary, before the mythology of it gets wrapped up in it. And this part is in the documentary. He had some stipulations. And one of them was it has to be the entire collection, including it might be the Village Voice article. I'll link to everything I read because there's a couple of really good ones. But one of them said yes, even all 5 rental copies of Shrek. When Amazing. He says entire collection, at least at that point, he meant entire collection. And apparently, literally the only place that had the floor, he said it's got to be 3,000 square feet. And again, the entire collection. And apparently, Salemi, Italy.
Yeah.
The only proposal that came through with that.
Well, he also wanted them to be accessible to the public.
Yeah.
For
specifically
free.
To Kim's Video members. which I love. I love that I really do love that he didn't try to sell it, and that he wanted to keep it in the hands of the people who helped him build that little empire.
Yeah, totally. But because of all of these weird conditions and no one being able to meet them, the entire collection ends up in the middle of Sicily, in some little town.
That had been like 40 years before. I'm bad with dates, but something like that. I think the 1960s, destroyed in a flood.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like a town that's really trying to make its way
they're
back.
using this as their, like, we're going to be a cultural center, basically. We're going to, take on this huge collection and use it as the centerpiece of our cultural revitalization. Right.
And then, as far as we know, and this is everything else I've read up to this point, excluding the documentary, it sort of disappears. I read, again, this Village Voice article that's really great and is clearly in conversation with this documentary. The documentary must be, despite how some things are framed in the doc, they must have read this. Alex Ross Perry is quoted in it extensively. But the writer of that article, who's not in the documentary, also tried to go and see it. And I think they did eventually get in, but had some resistance the same way that Redmond did. So all of that is true.
Right. So I think before we get into the weirdness of it, maybe we should talk a little bit about why Kim's Video was such a specific place. Like, we talked about the sheer number and the bootlegs, but like it was like a cult location. Like, people in film, directors, like people like Tarantino, the Coen brothers were all customers.
Right.
The Coen
David
brothers
Wayne
notoriously
is in this shortly.
Yeah, Joel and Ethan Coen notoriously had like a $600 late fee that was eventually forgiven. They never paid it. But it was also like patrolled by security guards, and it was like a weirdly intimidating place, which is something I remember. And it was like packed and packed and packed with stuff. And it was like especially the St. Mark's location was like an icon for a really long time. Those signs were notorious. Like, I knew it immediately when I saw it. And it was interesting to hear the like nostalgia of it all too. Just, I mean, video stores in general, but also specifically New York in that time frame. We can talk about the narrator, but he talks about like by the time he gets to New York, the crazy crime era is over and it's already started to be gentrified, and he's kind of disappointed. And by the time I got there, it was definitely gentrified. But I mean, I went into the city in the 80s with my mom when I was a kid, and it was, you'd get out of the Lincoln Tunnel and there'd be the guys with the newspapers trying to wash your windshields. My mom would like lock all our doors, and we'd drive straight to whatever cultural attraction we were going to and park underground. And so I get the nostalgia, but like New York in the 70s was something.
Well, we saw
Times Square.
We saw Times Square.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm half joking, but that really is film.
I know.
That movie was filmed on location. At the time.
And I mean, that was Times Square. That wasn't even like Uptown. That wasn't even like Harlem, the Bronx, all of that.
Right.
But yeah, so I think I wish there had been more about the store itself.
Yeah.
And less about the narrator.
I'm so curious because we will get, and I like that it starts there with them like asking people in the area today, like, what do you know about Kim's Video? This is where I struggle, and we'll get into it, but I wonder if you and I are just a little different. And this is why I'm hesitating, because what I'm about to say is that would people struggle with a documentary that was a straightforward, just time, not like...
He didn't need to do all the personal stuff that's in there. It's like...
Everything I read said everybody told him he had to.
That's insane. Because the reviews that I read...
a reluctant narrator.
Yeah, no, I do not believe that. Because every review I've seen, there was one in the New York Times that says, where is it? The movie begins with someone bringing a handheld camera to St. Mark's Place, where a Kim's Superstore once stood, and asking passerby if they can direct him to Kim's video, which seems a contrived, disingenuous setup. It then segues into Redmond's autobiographical musings. My parents were 17 years old when I was born, he recalls. No one's asking, but okay. The New York Times article is like a bit harsh. It also says, despite not even possessing Duolingo level Italian, the segments in which Redmond yammers in English at people who don't understand him are particularly irritating.
Here's the thing. Yeah. You didn't bring it a translator question mark. Here's what I'll say, Jodie. I did not have the subtitles on at first, and I thought it was a function of the documentary for the first good chunk because of all of that. I'm like, oh, maybe that's part of it. Maybe we're supposed to feel sort of like in the this like, why can't I think of the word? What's language barrier? Maybe the like language barrier is supposed to be part of it. That was just me. But I'm just saying it says something. Yeah, that I thought maybe that was the case.
It was insane. It's not like this was going on in like 1986. Like, you can get a translator in Italy.
Or they are in your phone. It's not going to be perfect.
Well, I don't know when this was filmed. Was it like 2022?
2016, they had the first image shot, they said. So, okay. So, but recent, even if, I mean, that could mean anything. Like, but either way, they didn't go to Italy any earlier than that. It feels, I think they went, a bit later.
Yeah. And I mean, I was in Japan in 2017, and it was quite hard to use Google Translate. You could, but it wasn't convenient at all. It didn't work that well.
Right. But I just mean like,
but you could bring a person.
Yeah.
You could bring a human
100%.
That speaks both languages. Like, it was almost slapstick in the beginning when he's in Sicily and he's walking around with some random guy and they're trying to find anyone who speaks English, like in the tourism office, in the streets. Nobody speaks English. Oh my God, this guy's going to think we're idiots. Like, it was
because
a farce.
You are. Yeah. But not because you don't speak the language, but because you didn't think about that in the first place. Yeah. So frustrating.
It was very weird.
It's like he wanted their relationship to be antagonistic.
Yeah, I really have no idea. I mean, I guess I have some idea what he was going for, but it's just so confusing in its tone, and it changes over time. Like, it starts out as this like look back through a very personal lens at the importance of movies, and then turns into like some sort of like Italian Job heist movie where they're wearing masks like they're in some sort of bank robbery.
Well, because they want you to think that's real.
Yeah.
They want you to think that they tricked the local government into letting them film a fictional movie where the plot is that they pack up the movies for fun, but then they actually do it for real. And then they leave with them on a truck and somehow get them back to New Jersey. And nobody stops them. I just don't believe it. And I think it would have been how sweet would it have been to be honest about what happened there and still have them go dressed up as the old filmmakers and shoot their fictional film because he loves movies so much. And isn't it fun that he's been thinking, like, that would be really cute to do.
Yeah.
We don't have, there's just, especially with as protective as Salemi is about their image and that collection, and there's just no way. There's no way that they got Scooby-Dooed out of. It's not 55,000. He gets like as many.
He gets about 20,000. Yeah,
but it's a lot.
Yeah, he gets about 20,000 of them.
I can't believe I'm the only one questioning this, and I seem to be.
I mean, I am not. I am questioning it, but I'm also like, it just doesn't make sense to me. None of it makes sense. Why you would make that up and then try to pass it off as real. It's just confusing.
Because he so badly wants to he thinks he's, I didn't hate this. I had a weird time watching it. I was really interested in some of it. I thought there were a lot of people in this movie who were really fascinating characters. I don't regret it. I don't regret telling our listeners to watch it at all. Like, I want to put all of that out there. But he has several threads going that he's trying to bring together, and he thought he did it symbolically with this heist.
Yeah.
And I just don't think he did.
Yeah. No, I know. There's it's not the New York Times. I think it was
Daily News. There was the Billy Joel song.
There was an article that I read that said Kim's video turns into a lo-fi Michael Moore movie as would-be thriller. And what comes to the fore is that the funds that should have been applied to the Kim's collection were diverted by unseemly forces. Like, you have to somehow make that basic fact more interesting. And he's trying to do that by like chasing around these like possible mobsters and trying to get in their cars and like following them around. And it's just like, and they're all basically like brushing him off like a fly. Like, what are you even doing here again, dear? Like, what's this? What are you doing? What's happening?
I think that's interesting. I think this basic kid, it feels like in a lot of ways, going into a place where it's not that he's not really, he's definitely not wanted. He has no place being at. He's not actually equipped to deal with all of this.
No.
Like, and then still managing to convince them to bring this collection home. I think that's really compelling. I think that's way more compelling than I tricked them into stealing it, which we know you didn't do. Also,
though, I don't think that he convinced them. I think Kim did. Because like he actually goes there and is like, why is my collection of 55,000 movies wet? Like, why is it wet?
Do you think that's what it is? Is that he knew this guy's been making this movie, brought Kim, was hope, blah, blah, blah. But then it felt anticlimactic to him to be like, oh, so Kim shows up once and they're willing to hand it over. So instead he builds in this other.
I guess. I mean, what this pointed out to me is that there are, let's tie it all together. There are a million Dawsons out there trying to make their own movies, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, Kim also tried to make movies. Like, everybody's trying to make movies. His movie looked a little creepy.
It looked really creepy.
Yeah, but like, everybody's just trying to make a movie, trying to pull it together, you know. Dawson tried to do it with that filmmaker that had disappeared into, you know, the ether and ended up at Cape Side.
So funny.
Yeah. So it's it does feel a little bit like, I mean, I looked up this couple's IMDb pages, and they've done other documentaries, none of which have gotten very far. But there's two that they're mentioned as like most known for. Mm-hmm. One is referred to as Night Labor. And this is a great description. It says, it's about a clam digger by day and a factory worker by night. And it's like, it says night labor is an intimate experience of what the film critic Jay Hoberman calls situation documentary, a blending of minimally structured narratives with documentary moments and long takes that elide conventional narrative and plot in favor of mood, lyrical entertainment, and banal mystery. So, like, maybe you should have done that here.
That's what I was just going to say.
Because he's trying to make a plot happen, and like, and it's like a pretty thin
moments in this where there are like long stretches of just the videos being like sorted through or falling down, and in fact, in this, they felt out of place to me because of what this whole documentary being. But I mean, we know about the TikTok I've been wanting you to start. Like, I would love a documentary that is
tapes.
I would love a documentary that is mostly people sorting through this huge collection of videos.
Yeah. No, I know. I think that approach, you know, the other one is even creepier sounding.
He just so badly wanted this to be his story.
I know. The other film that they say that they're known for is something called Girl Model.
No.
Yeah. It is a documentary about young models from Romania that are sent to Tokyo. It's like apparently an extremely depressing, like, expose kind of thing. Huh. So I don't know what to make of these folks. He's the one that's most present. His wife is sort of visibly there a little bit, but not really.
Is she at all in this?
I think in one towards the end when he's like following that guy that as he gets in his car, one of the Italian guys, I think you see her.
Is the implication when they drive under the bridge
that they're going to get murdered?
Well, like, haha, right? But then they cut to an unrelated scene and don't refer back to that. Are we supposed to think they got a talking to?
No.
Some sort of off-camera threat that made them shift that?
I just took it as they realized they were doing something stupid and drove away.
it's just like, why even? I mean, I know they're including it because the implication is that they could have gotten that quote unquote talking to, but
I mean, they did show all those mob photos of like people being murdered and like bloody stains on floors and stuff to drive home the fact that like these are real mob people that he's fucking around with.
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, but I don't think these people really care about a video collection.
No.
Like, this is, I mean, even if they got in trouble for mismanaging those funds, like, for a United States video collection from like, the stakes are not as high as they're trying to be, you know, presented as.
Right. And again, I don't think they need to be. I think this is a very interesting story. Either way, it's cool that it's got a little blush of mob ties because isn't that fun? I think it's more fun. I love low stakes mafia. Like, I grew up in Jersey. I love low stakes mafia. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I think that's... I think there's
it's got a good ending. You know, I mean, it's not insanely dramatic, but it does end up with the movies coming back and being like a recreation of Kim's video being created at the New York Alamo Draft House, which is like perfect for if it's got to end up somewhere where people can access it. Like, it's apparently set up to at least resemble the original Kim's video.
And the scene where he returns to Kim with most of the collection and tells Kim, that conversation I think is really fun because you can tell Kim isn't sure how to feel about it. Yeah. He reminds him that he told him not to in the first place. He says like, oh, and you kind of did it without my permission, which is vaguely threatening. And again, in a way that I like. Like, I think there's a lot here that I found interesting and charming and informative. And then and I also like people getting silly with stuff.
Yeah.
So like,
I like seeing the guy from Alamo Draft House when he was like, I wasn't sure you were serious that there were going to be 20,000 videos.
Yeah.
It's like, this is only half of it. And you could see him really being like, wait, really? Like,
that's what I mean.
Realizing what he had.
I would have been interested more in that. They have an Instagram, by the way, of them kind of like sorting through that collection that I've been paging through here and there. That's really fun.
That's so good.
So I just think like, you know what? Two things. As I was watching this and deciding how I felt about it, I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation with Tommy, who, for the most part, doesn't show up in his documentaries. Also, often has a story to tell. Like he says, like the Barney documentary, "I Love You, You Hate Me," is like has a point that isn't just I'm documenting the rise and fall of Barney the dinosaur. But then he also understands that a documentary like The House From, people just want the cameras in front of the thing in that case.
Yeah.
And in that case, it's okay if you pop in here and there because one of your favorite actors is in it and you want that documented as well. It's totally appropriate in that one. He's not, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that's why it's so important as a filmmaker, especially a documentarian, to like have the self-awareness and also the awareness of your subject to like understand what should and shouldn't be there.
Well, and he also says some concerning things that you're not sure he's serious about, like about how he's hearing voices and stuff like that. And you're like, are you saying that like facetiously, or is that real? Like,
I'm so annoyed because I think he's saying it facetiously, but wants you to question whether or not he's really hearing voices because he thinks that makes him
that's gross,
more interesting. And also like he's so compelled by these spirits. And it's just like, dude.
Well, it's either that he's doing it facetiously or he really believes it, in which case, like, this is a concerning... Like, at some point, I would, if I was a person in his life, be like, dude, what are you... Like, why? Right. Can you maybe let this go or, like, chill out a little bit? But there's also some stuff missing that So there's an article in NJ.com, actually. Actually, it's NorthJersey.com, excuse me, not the... But so there's things that they didn't say in the documentary that I thought were really interesting, because he says they're talking about Kim, and he says he was concerned following the demise of the chain that his thousands of films wouldn't be available to the general public. He donated a chunk of them to Ramapo College, which I did not know, which is
cool,
right by where I lived, and other large portions to Columbia University and several Korean universities, but none of these places offered general access. So he said, whenever I donated to institutions, my problem was they cannot offer the public to use their collection. So he actually already had donated some chunks of it to other places.
This is everything, Jodie. You just cracked this wide open because you can't leave that out if you're making an actual documentary.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, the whole collection, 55,000 tapes, it was so important to him. That's why Salami, blah, 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 blah. And then leave it up to a, like, plucky New Jersey journalist to find out the truth.
I thought you were going to refer to me as a plucky New Jersey journalist.
Two plucky New Jersey journalists.
Yeah, this is Jim Beckerman. Shout out to Jim Beckerman. Yeah.
To find out the truth.
Yeah. I'm sure it was small amounts, but
it doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh boy, am I.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great article. We should link to this as well, because Kim is saying, the first time I saw an American film was the Charlie Chaplin film, which they mentioned in the movie. And he says, when Kim came to the U.S. in 1979, he settled in Alphabet City, which at the time was wild. But he has lived in New Jersey for 29 years.
Hell yeah, Jersey guy, love him.
Saddle River, Bergen County.
Can't be perfect, but it's okay.
But yeah, so Kim's video opened in 1987, and then it says this article tells the story in some ways better than the documentary, because it also says that he went out of his way to cater to the other constituents in his neighborhood, so Eastern European immigrants, art students, and hipsters. He began to acquire a catalog of European films, underground films, oddities.
He feels like in real life what Redman wanted to be. This like obsessive film collector who all he wanted to do was make and live in the movies. And to be fair, that is what Redman's doing. So who am I to say that's not really who he is? I don't know this fucking guy, but it's who Redman so badly wants us to see him as, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess what happened was the 55,000 titles that they talk about all the time were from specifically the St. Mark's location from Mondo Kim's, and those are the ones that went to Salami.
Okay, they might even say that in the documentary. That it's not specific, that it's not literally every single title.
Yeah,
but they really want you to feel like it is.
Yeah. And so now it lives in Alamo Drafthouse in New York,
which I think it's great. Okay. I know Alamo Drafthouse is like a chain at this point, and they're kind of all over the place and whatever, and people can be, to go from like this very indie thing to something. But I'm kind of like, at least they're doing that. At least somebody is doing it.
Also, this is what, when you say that Kim is the most interesting thing in this movie, he really is. Like in this article, it says he was a Saddle River resident since 1993. With his wife, he brought up 4 children in Bergen County. Their names are Iron, Silver, Pearl, and Woody.
Oh, Woody! Oh,
poor
bud.
Woody. It says the names are a nod. The names are a nod to his own immigrant beginnings and his belief that everyone has a unique contribution to make. I want them all to become unique persons like those materials. Like,
except for Woody, we'll see how he does.
Right. I wanted so much more about him.
Yeah. He's just one of those. He was like immediately charming, even though he wasn't trying to be,
Well, and they set him up to be really scary in the beginning, because and he is a little bit. He's a little bit scary, but he's also just very intense about his business, I think. And so any business person that is able to successfully run 7 locations of anything in New York City is not going to be just hanging out shooting the shit with his employees.
Right.
Like, that's not the way that happens.
It was funny to me when toward the end, I don't know why these people are inviting David to places, but he's wherever, I forget where Kim works now, but Redman is with him, and he says kind of off to the side to him, he's like, they don't know about all that. So like, be cool. Okay. They only know he's this businessman.
I found his LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited.
I was looking him up yesterday to find out how long he lived in New Jersey for.
This is why you want people like us hosting podcasts like this.
So he is president of Kim's International Incorporated, whatever that is. Maybe it's
got his name on the thing.
Import export or something. I don't know, but yeah, that's all it says. President of Kim's International.
Good for him.
Yeah, although actually there's another entry. This might be older. How is our podcast know me reading LinkedIn? He was CEO of JK Funding LLC. This guy sounds like just such an interesting person, and I wish we'd spent more time on the video store itself and the culture around it, because that was really interesting. Like what New York was like in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s around places like that, especially the St. Mark's location, because that was such a specific culture down there.
Right.
And then I wish we'd learned more about Kim himself.
Like 100%. I think it's it really bums me out that we don't.
I just think that like maybe he's trying to shoehorn this story into a format that it's not working in, that he's not good at, or that he's, maybe he's better at these sort of like lyrical, like, atmospheric documentaries. Maybe not, but you never
Who's
know.
to say? One more gripe. I don't need you to say I was reminded of the movie blah, blah, blah when you are going to then show a scene from the movie blah, blah, blah and also put the titles on the screen. I don't need you to tell me that. It's in
so
fact,
many times.
And it's so like put the images in as much as you want, because you got to put something on screen. As someone who from time to time makes 1 minute long Instagram clips, sometimes you just got to find something to be on the screen while someone is talking. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with it. I don't need the talking to be you saying, I was reminded of. It was just like, it's like, bud, let us do some of the work ourselves, especially when it's flimsy at best, the connection.
I want to know how this sounds mean, how he was allowed to do this. I mean, like this is an interesting story that has been discussed.
Yeah.
Prior to this, like, you can imagine what this would have been like if it was done by
Tommy Avalone.
There you go. Like by someone who had a really good sense of tone and structure.
Yeah.
Like I found it interesting. I mean, I wasn't bored.
I was never bored.
Yeah.
Oh. There was a fire?
Yeah, there's a random fire that didn't have any consequences at all.
There is something fascinating about the fact that you've been trying so hard to protect this collection, and the day you drive up to finally remove it, there's a fire burning.
Yeah.
There is something poetic about that.
Yeah. And it is never mentioned after that. It just kind of...
Well, and also because I don't think it's anywhere near... I think a building in that general area was on fire.
It looked like a brush fire nearby to me or something.
Right? He says the building's on fire. Very clearly the building is... And then it goes, and it went out on its own. And I'm like, maybe true. I also think maybe that's a kill your darlings moment where you just need to skip over it because it feels so out of
it doesn't
place,
go anywhere.
even though it's true. And again, I do see there's some... If this documentary had been the documentary you and I have been like theorizing in our head, there's a way to include that to be like, isn't it crazy? We're just showing you everything that happened in this journey. And one of the things that happened is the day we went to pick up these movies, there was a fire. Could you imagine? What if we lost it? But it just feels like another weird thing in a collection of weird things.
Yeah. I know I'm reading a lot of quotes this episode, but one of the ones from the reviews that I found was a fascinating story that is somewhat bungled by David Redman and Ashley Sabin in a feature documentary that is bat crazy. Redman, who narrates, is all about himself and gets in the way a lot. So.
Like literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Yeah. Redman is a focal point and may have some mental health issues based on what he says, but he has a passion and it's endearing. The doc is disjointed, but the story, which includes the Italian mafia, is totally worth it. So that's kind of how I felt about it. Like, it's a really interesting story that I didn't know about, and I did know about Kim's video. So
yeah,
I learned something.
I'm starting to... I'm of two minds because... The interview I read says he was a reluctant narrator, that several people said the story needs somebody to connect it. It needs a protagonist. Mm-hmm. My feeling is that the protagonist is Kim's video collection, like in its own way. That's the thing that's trying to get home. You can definitely make that feel like an active participant in this story.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it.
That's such a good point. Like, I wanted so much more of footage of the collection in that warehouse. I wanted to see all those like groupings and classifications and titles and sections as they took them down. Like, I mean, I just gave a talk about archives, so maybe that's just because I like archives, but
I was going to say, maybe we aren't the target audience for this documentary, but that's the problem, Jodie. We should be.
Yeah. I mean, who was
and
more
like the
target
collection having to split itself? There's there's like a scene to be had there where like they have
because they couldn't take all 55,000.
Right.
Like,
there's
how
so
do they decide?
There's so much there for it, and like
I know. I think the only people that are more the target audience for this are like film bros,
David Redman and his wife, maybe.
Or film bros. Like, but like we're two women of the age that worked in video stores.
I'm just realizing my point when I started that was to say something generous about him, and now we're just talking shit again. Is that if we take him at his word that he was a reluctant participant in terms of being on like a character in the story, and that it was by suggestion and he came kicking and screaming. How sad for him to have tried to make this documentary, had it turned into something he didn't want it to be, and now he's getting these really mixed reviews who are telling him he's the problem. That makes me feel bad.
Yeah, but I don't
buy it.
I don't buy it. Like, I feel like he wanted to talk about himself. But
which is
what
also
do I know?
Fine. You're allowed to do that, but you've got to do it differently.
Yeah. Because it starts that way, and then it doesn't end that way. It starts that way, but it's like it gets totally wrapped up in the mafia angle, and who's this person and that person, and this one was the minister of culture, and this one knew Berlusconi, and it's like you started out talking about how like you sat in your grandparents' house and watched movies, like, and it felt jumbled.
It feels like the reverse of what he said to me. It sounds like he wanted to tell a story about himself. Then all of this stuff got in the way that is more interesting. And instead of doing the thing he should have done as a filmmaker and said, I'm going to remove myself from this story. Here's the story. Not even just a filmmaker, any creative person. As a writer, like, here's the story that's actually revealed itself and the story that wants to be told. And I'm going to get out of the way and do that. This would have been a 10 out of 10.
You know what I really would have wanted, actually? Spend most of the movie, like, obviously the story of all the films coming back from Sicily is like a great story. But I would have loved the first half of the movie to just hear stories from the people that worked there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because New York during that time frame, working in a video store on the Lower East Side, like, just, I'm sure that those people have incredible stories.
And then that puts the collection at a place of like, it's about the movies, of course, but it's also about the people around it and
the community.
Like, and that, like, in a sentimental way, these videos are all part of everybody who ever rented them and everybody who worked there. And it's not just about the physical objects themselves, but the like, you know, the like spiritual footprint that they leave.
Well, and weirdly enough, on YouTube, I was like, after I watched this, I rented it on YouTube. So of course the feed starts suggesting other things to me. And one of the things it suggested to me was like this group of short videos of people, famous people, going to the collection at Alamo Drafthouse and wandering through and talking about like people that were customers. So Chloe Sevigny was one of them. And like, she's talking about how she would go in there and she always felt like she was afraid to ask questions because everybody was too cool. So she would like research things ahead of time. And like, she was picking up movies that she would have taken home. And it was like, this is interesting. This is like, you're talking about what it meant to the people that used it.
I would have loved more of that. I also now want something separate that is a YouTube series or TikTok series or whatever of those people curating little like playlists of movies from the collection physically.
Yeah, because she's really going through it. The only one I watched was the Chloe Sevigny one, but she's really going through and talking about like what she had rented at the time, if she found something that she had, because I guess she would, because of the way they curated it and the sections they would put things in, she would go to a section and just start going through it like methodically.
Right. That's so cool.
Yeah. And that's from like, Chloe Sevigny visits the Kim's video collection it's from on the Alamo Drafthouse YouTube page.
We'll link to that as well because that's so cool. I would watch.
Paul Dano as well. So
all the young hipsters.
David Lowery. Yeah, so there's all of these great like conversations about its role and usefulness to like movie lovers at that time.
That you and I are like suggesting a thing this documentary isn't. And that's not totally fair of us to be like, here's what it is, here's what it should be. But I think it's all like that story. It's not like that story isn't in here. That story is really asking to be told. It's just, he just won't get out of the way to let it be. It's just really frustrating.
No, totally. And like, I'm realizing as my YouTube algorithm suggests more and more things about Kim's video that like there's lots of good like content out there about this story already. But
that's why I was surprised, because it does sort of feel like this documentary wants you to think it discovered this. There's the scene that where the guy who wrote the proposal for it is on camera and he's explaining it, and then he says, and it's in the trailer because it's a great pull quote, where he's like, nobody explained that to you? I'm surprised. That's it. It's the thing. It's the promise. And it's like, somebody explained it to him, because in the Village Voice article, Alex Ross Perry, who's in the documentary, is talking about it. There's just no way he didn't know that. And it's like, if you need somebody to say it for your camera, fine. But you can do it in a way that isn't like disingenuous. And I think I also think it's unfair that this place and this story that has so much history, clearly that you and I, like, you knew a little bit about, I knew nothing about, is already there, that for this documentary to act like it's discovered this little secret is unfair and probably limits who he felt he couldn't reach out to. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel kind of bad shitting on him this much, because I did enjoy myself, but also like what this is,
I had a great time.
Yeah. But what this is doing is pointing out to me like what I wish it could have been. And like, again, we've said this before, I'm not a filmmaker. Like who am I to tell people how to do this? But I am a lover of nostalgia and like documentaries about a very niche thing that I am adjacent to in terms of like being part of that generation and working at a video store. I also worked at Barnes and Noble for a while, and the one in Paramus had a used book section.
Oh, cool.
And it was big, and I worked in the used book section, and I like one time the guy that ran it let me go with him to somebody's collection to like bring it back to the store to sort through.
Actually teared up thinking about that.
I know. It was so cool. So like they stored all the used books in this giant cage behind the store in this warehouse part that was like back behind the main retail floor. And like sometimes my job would just be to go through the 99-cent paperbacks. And I mean, like, yeah. So I should be the person that, like, I think that's why I want to see more of that archival stuff.
Right. I love my job. I love my job. I would quit today if somebody offered me that.
I know. If it paid more than $7 an hour, I'd still be there.
I was going to say, that's how I feel.
$7.75 an hour.
That's how I feel about the movie theater that I worked at. If that could pay my bills, and not even, I would scale back. If I could live a life, if I could keep Toby and his prescription cat food, I would go back to a movie theater. Although I'll bet it's really different now. I'll bet it's way different. So yeah, I'm starting to feel bad that we were again, I liked a lot of this documentary. I didn't have a bad time watching it. I'm glad we encouraged our listeners to watch it. I kind of hope that we have some folks who listened to this episode who hadn't watched it, and now they're going to go watch and form their own opinions. Like, I think it's interesting. I think it's curious. I think it's worth it just to like spend some time with Kim and with the folks in Italy. Like, I think there's a lot of... You get to see
his nice, like, North Jersey suburban backyard with, like, the big... I think, is that a pizza oven back there? He's got a whole setup.
That's the real
nice
draw.
Patio. Yeah.
Lovely patio.
Yeah.
So, if nothing else, go for the tour of Saddle River.
Yeah. I know. I wonder how far it is from my grandparents' house. That's my curiosity. Nothing else.
No. But that's Kim's video.
Yeah. Interesting. As I was watching it, I watched it before you, and as I was watching it, I was like, I don't know what to make of this, and I don't know what Andrew's going to make of this, and I can't tell if it's like really great or terrible or something else or in between, but I have to say, like, I got a little thrill when he got to Sicily and saw the Kim's Video sign on the side of like a dusty, like Sicilian building. I was like, wait, it's really there? Like, there were moments where I was kind of wrapped up in the intrigue.
Again, there is a story in here. 100% there is a story in here.
Yeah, exactly. We just didn't quite hold together.
Mm-mm. But they can't all be, they can't all be perfect.
They can't all be perfect.
Speaking of they can't all be perfect, what a segue for what we're going to be watching next week, which I think will be perfect, but it's subject matter.
Yes. Notoriously imperfect.
Yeah.
I could not be more excited. We talked about this so long ago, and I was like, wouldn't it be so cool if we got to watch it and interview this filmmaker? And we are.
Now we're gonna.
So if any of you have been around for a while, you may remember that we did a whole series of movies that were sort of important movies to us, that meant something to us. And I think both we both have like Kevin Smith movies that are important to us, but Chasing Amy is like a special case. Mm-hmm. And so when we watched it, I was doing our usual digging of like background info to see what I didn't know about this movie I've seen a bunch of times. And I found out that some young upstart filmmaker had made a documentary about what its very imperfect representation of queerness meant to a queer kid growing up in the Midwest. And that queer kid is Sav Rogers, and we're going to interview him. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. We haven't gotten to see it yet. We're going to get to see it before we get to talk to him about it.
Yes.
But obviously we're recording this before that happens. And I'm so excited.
I know. I am too.
We'll keep it. It's a documentary. It's going to be hard to say like spoiler free. I don't think that's the conversation we're going to have.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we'll have the conversation and people should still go see the documentary. I will say though, if you live in Atlanta, Georgia, Charlotte, North Carolina, Chicago, Illinois, Dallas or Fort Worth, Texas, Denver, Detroit, Houston, Minneapolis, Nashville, Kansas City, I'll link to all of these, Vancouver, San Luis Obispo, Memphis, Howell, Michigan, Burlington, Iowa, Columbus, Ohio, Corvallis, Oregon, Plymouth, Montana, Portland, Oregon. If you live in any of those areas, you can see this before you hear us talk about it.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, it's opening on November 1st in a bunch of cities. Unfortunately, nothing near me, but...
Or me.
Yeah, but we are going to be lucky enough to get to see it a little ahead and talk to Sav. So Sav is originally from Kansas, and he gave a TED Talk in 2018 that I watched when we watched Chasing Amy about his experience with the film. He's also the founder and executive director of the Transgender Film Center. So I'm super excited to finally actually have this be happening.
I truly couldn't be more excited. Here's a little note. You and I are going to have that conversation. And then that same night at Samad Castle Cinemas,
oh my God,
our New Jersey's the World co-host is going to be on stage with Kevin Smith. So for the George Lucas Talk Show, which again, I have no idea if Kevin Smith will be at our show a couple of weeks later. I'm hoping the New Jersey's the World show a few weeks later. I'm hoping this is a good omen.
Yeah.
That he'll be back for that show, but
we shall see.
We'll see. Again, tickets for New Jersey's the World are selling out. Go get them if you're one of our New Jersey's the World listeners and haven't yet.
Yeah. And the good news is I got COVID now, so I won't have it then. It's one less obstacle to me actually getting down to Jersey for this.
Such a trooper today.
Yes. I tested positive for COVID yesterday.
I'm so sorry.
I know. Me too. But, get your boosters, kids, because I got mine in September and I still got it, but it's so far really mild.
I mean, you're recording. That's a good sign.
Yeah. I feel like I have a cold. Mm-hmm. I'm a little stuffy. I'm a little achy, but it's like not what it could be. So Get that booster. That was your public service announcement.
Do we want to take a trip?
Take a trip?
To the creek?
Oh, to the creek? To the creek? We can take a trip to the creek. I watched a few more last night.
You watched a big one last night.
I did. Oh my God. Finally. Okay.
Did you know?
I did only when the car crashed through the house.
Yeah, of course. That's the part.
Yeah.
That's the part where you'll know.
Yeah. Yeah, so I watched the episode last night where everybody goes home to Cape Side for Christmas, and
Terrible idea.
Audrey gets drunk and drives Pacey's car through the house.
Pacey really fucks up. Is it the episode right before that? Or it's one before that one, I think. It's the Halloween episode where she overhears him being a real asshole.
Yeah. And, I mean, is he being a real asshole, or is he being, like, pretty blunt? Like,
well, he's not talking to her.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And then he tries to, like, brush it off and act like he's not going to do anything about it. And that is like, come on, Pace.
Yeah. But, yeah. So I got to that moment and I was like, oh, it's the bear.
Yeah.
The bear stole from Dawson's Creek.
Can't believe they just ripped off Dawson's Creek, huh?
So funny. She's like also doing the thing at the table where she's saying everybody's like business and how they're all bullshit, like in front of everyone. And then like goes out the door, gets in the car and drives into the house. Mm-hmm. And then like collapses.
She tells everybody about themselves and then she says, "Merry Christmas, scum suckers. Peace out." It's iconic. She's the best. Scum suckers. We don't say scum suckers enough.
No. It was very funny. And right before then, when she got up from the table drunk, I texted you. It hadn't happened yet. And I texted you, are they going to kill off Audrey in this episode?
Yeah, it could have gone that way too.
Because I thought it was going to be like a drunk driving thing. And instead we got the bear. So.
Instead it was so much better.
Delightful. Absolutely delightful.
Merry Christmas, scum suckers.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm at the part where like Pacey's like, why am I a stock trader? And I've been wondering that this whole time. Mm-hmm. Like, why is he a stock trader? He's going to the Boston Aquarium at lunch and like running into his punk roommate there. Like, it's just weird shit is happening. I'm sure they're going to try to bring it back to something resembling.
Well, he grew up on the creek and he spent summers on a boat. Like, of course the aquarium is calling to him and the office is not where he should be.
No. He like wears a Hawaiian shirt to the office after he has the conversation about how he's strayed so far from who he is. It's so silly. Him in that suit and that goatee is just like awful.
That goatee is rough.
Yeah. And then we have like the random guy, the bartender that
Eddie?
Joey was hooking up with. Yeah. The Kate Hudson's brother. Yeah. Who I don't know. I didn't like him very much. He's kind of like a little bit too bro-y and he's inconsistent. He's like bro-y and reactive 1 minute and then he's like sweet the next minute.
That's
true. It's really confusing.
But Joey's, to be fair, so annoying.
Yes. She's the worst.
He's got a little bit of that thing though that is, or not though, I don't know what the word is. He's a really smart guy. He's like the smartest guy in her class. And again, Creek Corner's full of spoilers. And then you find out he's not even enrolled.
Yep.
And he's like a real blue collar guy.
Yeah. And he's got a good dad, but he keeps telling her that she's the spoiled one because she doesn't know that her dad was in prison.
I do kind of like that Eddie treats her like that because one of the fun things about Joey is that she is from the wrong side of the creek, literally. Mm-hmm. Her dad, again, drug kingpin. And like, I love that Joey had it rough. Like, and I think it's fun that she kind of has that in her back pocket, that he doesn't believe that. Like, it gives her a little.
But he conveniently gets them into a No Doubt concert because his dad works at probably the TD Bank Center. Or it wasn't called that then. But yeah, like.
Joey saying Worcester.
Oh.
And we're supposed to think that's, she said it the way I just said it. And
so did he.
It's definitely them doing their best we're supposed to think they sound local.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean?
I know, because they're like, well, we can't say it the way that people that aren't from Massachusetts would say it, but they couldn't get it right either.
But they never have. It's not like these people have been doing this show with Massachusetts accents the whole time.
I would argue the only person that has an accent is Pacey, and I can't understand why. Because he's from Canada.
That's just a Pacey.
He sounds a little.
Joshua,
but he sounds a little bit Boston.
Yeah.
Or New York or something.
It's kind of like how Thoreau. Why can't I think? Justin Thoreau has that weird.
Yep,
it's not
yep.
really. It's like almost a Jersey accent, even
Yeah.
though he's not in Jersey. It's like
Yeah.
kind of like that.
Yeah. But I dated someone from Worcester.
Worcester.
And that is not how they say it. I'm not going to even try.
It's so funny.
It's like, I swear to God, if you're not from the Northeast, it is pronounced Wista.
but
Like Worcester.
right, yeah.
But like with a weird, like.
You have to have like grown up drinking the water, I think. The same
Yeah.
way that like you could say the word I just said, and in a million years it would never sound right.
Yeah.
You could practice
Exactly.
for the rest of your life to say water, and it just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Even with the phonetic spelling, you've got to grow up drinking it to say it the right way. It's the same thing.
Got to grow up drinking the cedar water.
The cedar water.
Yeah. I'm not
rhymes.
trying. Yeah,
It
cedar
rhymes.
water. Exactly. So anyway, that's where I'm at with the creek. I'm imagining that we are slowly going to be heading towards some sort of conclusion that involves Joey, Pacey, and Dawson, because that is all that this show keeps coming back to.
Full frontal explicit threesome. You're right. You nailed it. You nailed it. That is the most
That's
disgusting
the worst thing you've ever said. I literally texted you last night because I cannot stand it anymore. Like, what did I say? Something about Joey. I was like, I did say, are they going to kill Audrey on Christmas? If I have to watch one more soft focus sex montage featuring Joey Potter, I'm jumping out a window.
I know part of it is that they were
gross.
on like a teen network, so they can't show
Then don't
it,
show
but,
it at all.
But
Like,
it's for
it was-
teens, so they sort of want to show it to be like, we
I
go there. We're
know.
like Degrassi. But it is...
Yeah, it was weird. It's unpleasant.
And it's mean to say to Katie Holmes, but like Joey is so sexless. Like,
Yeah.
it's,
100%.
I don't believe that she's ever had sex, even though we have technically seen her have sex
I
in
know.
soft focus via
I know.
montage.
Exactly. No, I feel the same way about Dawson, even though he's like trying to hook up with this actress or is hooking up with this actress. I'm like, please stop. Please don't ever show me that. I don't want to see it. I just can't. I need them to not try to keep doing this because it's upsetting every time.
I know. Well, the show's almost over. What do you
know,
have?
it's
Like
crazy.
12 episodes left? Not
Something
even?
like that. Where am I at? Hulu. I am. I'm on season 6, episode 12 is my next episode.
What's that one
So-
called?
All the Right Moves. As Audrey gets a second chance and Pacey is offered an unexpected promotion at work, Joey is reunited with Eddie. Audrey's getting real dark.
Yeah, it bums me out.
Yeah.
It's so teen soap to be like, somebody's got to be the...
Well, it's also a very after school special, which this
Yeah.
show has veered into a number of times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's going to have to do it for my COVID infected self.
We do have, before we go, just a little bit of Yellow Jackets news.
Yes, we do. Finally. God.
I know.
I mean, I get it. Like, I know they've been working, but like this, it feels like it's taking forever.
Yeah, we did just also see Samantha
Yes.
Hanratty.
You were right. Samantha Hanratty. Yeah.
Samantha Hanratty, like posting the last day of filming was
Yeah.
also recently just happened. But more importantly,
Yeah. More importantly, on Halloween, conveniently, Vanity Fair posted an article with some significant photographs that was an interview with Ashley about the upcoming season with some interesting statements.
there's one in particular. You've got the article open?
I got the article open. Yeah.
Do you know the quote I'm talking about?
I do.
Can you share that?
Yes. So, well, to start with, she says that a lot of the questions people have, obviously not all of them probably because they have more than 3 seasons planned in their heads, but questions will be answered, right? She acknowledges that, nothing's for everybody, but that, there were people wanted answers that never came in season 2. So she says that the season will realize much of the vision for the show that she and Bart developed at the outset. She also says this includes the merging of the characters' teen and adult selves, as shown in the portraits that are a part of the article. And she says some of it is really character-based, some of it is more literal, Lyle teases.
What, Jodie? I have one thought. But before I share it, what could that mean?
I mean, so one of the questions that they talk about possibly being actually answered is like, is this supernatural? Is this not? And like, if they're going supernatural, then they can kind of do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I have no fucking clue. So
I have a really
me.
I have a really dumb idea.
Yeah. Tell me.
Is there a chance, could it be, is there a universe where season 3 is them doing some kind of hypnotherapy, and what we've been seeing or what we will see in the wilderness is them doing some like I keep wanting to say like almost like past life regression, but to their childhood. And so that's why some of the stuff is really fucking weird, because it's actually a mental journey.
And I feel like we've talked about this possibility before. Like, I don't think this is actually that wild. The idea that like what we're seeing in the teen timeline is actually like the adults' versions of it.
But I'm wondering
now.
if it's like, this is how we heal, is by sending ourselves. And people have talked about like time travel, different timelines. And I'm saying, what's the less supernatural, but still like, here's a way to do that where you can have it look supernatural, but not be supernatural.
What's weird is the way she phrases it. She says,
that's what I mean. Like, well, that would make it more literal.
Yeah, but she says some is character based and some is more literal. Like, what the fuck does that mean?
What does that mean?
I don't know. But she says, I cannot get into specifics, but there are a couple of big things in this season that were in the very initial pitches before we even took it out to networks that we finally got the chance to execute and to play out.
And, you know, there's that, I keep going back to this stupid fucking scene, and you have settled in your mind with it in a way that I think most people have, and I'm sure you're right. But she said that thing about the fucking bonfire and how there's a clue there. And with Misty. And, like, there's something to that of the, like, overlay of two different moments. You know what I mean? Like, where it's
so what she says after this is, for each of these pairings and for each of these characters, the merging or the overlapping of the past and present happens in a very different way. It's very specific to the characters. In certain cases, the overlap is quite literal in a way. In other ones, it's a demonstration of a past and a present character that may have seemed quite different and quite disparate, how that young adult became the person that they are. The person that they are even as an adult really is an echo or a resonance from the person they used to be. All of that is saying
Ashley,
absolutely
I love you
nothing.
So much, but what the fuck are you talking about?
That means nothing. That's the vaguest, most weird.
It's hypnosis.
I don't know.
For some of them? What do you mean for some of them?
I know.
So some people are going to... What are we doing?
I know. Because she's talking about, she says, we love to play with the idea that in some ways you are who you are. I think back to the person I was when I was 17 and I don't feel that different. How do you change while you are in your core, your essence, the same person you always were? Like, this is all just sort of like, she says something that is very specific and then just follows it with a bunch of vague, like...
Some of them it's going to be hypnosis. Some of them it's going to be ayahuasca.
Right.
That kind of answers everything.
Yeah. The last scene is them all laying on the ground after an ayahuasca trip, surrounded by vomit.
I mean,
yeah, I don't know. It's a very provocative statement that also says nothing. Yeah, but she's being very clear that they're going to answer some questions, because at the very end of this article, she says, we're going to learn more about what happened in the wilderness that they're so afraid of coming out. So, you know, people have always talked about like
that also. Wow. Hold on.
Yeah, because
that's a huge statement, because I think a lot of us have been like, well, we know what it is. What's worse than eating each other?
Right. Well, a killing game.
Well, yeah, but even that feels like that sentence makes me think she's talking about something we don't even know about yet.
Yeah. I know. That's kind of what it sounds like. And she says, the stakes are pretty high in the present day storyline, perhaps in a way they did not feel in season 2. And that was really exciting for us to delve into. So one of the things we talked about with season 2 was like, all of this stuff happened that should have had consequences, and none of it had consequences. Like, people are doing crazy shit and like killing people and burying them in Hackle Barney Park, and like no one is facing any consequences whatsoever. And it felt really weird that it was like so detached from any sense of like cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
So it does sound like they're going to be maybe having some effects.
That's cool. Good. I hope so. And does it mention in the article, does it use the phrase early 2025 for when the show will be back?
Oh, yes. It says it's returned to Paramount Plus with Showtime in early 2025.
So where does that put us, I guess, optimistically? Early 2025.
Originally I was hoping for January, but I think because a lot of things are coming back in January, that it would make, especially because they're just finishing now in November, that February is more likely. That's what I was thinking. And you said you saw something that maybe not confirmed it, but also felt the same way that was what was coming.
Somebody, Emily in one of the Yellow Jackets Facebook groups, so if you're listening to this, thank you, Emily, said that Marie Schley, the costume designer, revealed that we should see it sometime in February, which is your guess. And then Emily here did a little bit of like TV math, and with Dexter being in the slot where Yellow Jackets usually is, and having 10 episodes, if Dexter goes 10 weeks in a row, no breaks, and Yellow Jackets picks up right after, that puts us at February 23rd.
There you go.
So optimistically,
yeah,
if things go as we hope that they might,
right,
it seems as though we might be watching the Yellow Jackets season 3 premiere on February 23rd, which would mean that we would be premiering our first Yellow Jackets episode on February 25th, because I think we'll go back to Tuesdays.
Fingers crossed. I have not been on the Yellow Jackets Reddit in a little bit.
No, neither have I.
I did get a notification that someone had been looking at the recommended podcasts thread because they just started Yellow Jackets, and was sad to see that that season 1 for us was all spoilers because we'd already recorded season 2 and then went back. And I was like, I know, I'm sorry, but
that's so funny.
Yeah. Just get to season 2 and then join in.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see all of the parsing of Ashley Lyle's language that will be happening in the Yellow Jackets subreddit.
Yeah, because that is peculiar.
Yeah.
So
but we will see sooner rather than later, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So excited. Could not be more excited. I feel like I want to go back and pull up what I said about the documentary when we first talked about Chasing Amy, because I remember being like really upset that I had just missed a screening in Boston like a month before. We're finally getting to see it. But yeah, so that's it.
That's it.
I'm gonna go get healthy again.
Yeah, and we'll see you.
COVID out of my system, and we'll see you in Red Bank.
Back in Red Bank. Merry Christmas, scum suckers.
Merry Christmas, scum suckers.
Peace out.